We begin this ceremony by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Unandawaka, or the people of the Great Hill. In English, they are known as Seneca people, the keepers of the Western Door. Together with the Mohawk, Oneida, Onondaga, Cayuga, and Tuscarora, the Seneca make up the sovereign Haudenosaunee Confederacy. We honor and respect the enduring relationship that exists between these peoples and nations and this land. Yahweh.
Good morning. Welcome. My name is Susan Holliday, and I have the honor to serve as a vice chair of the RIT Board of Trustees, and I'm a graduate of the Saunders College of Business, where I received my MBA. I am so delighted to join you this morning. Today, we gather at this magnificent new venue for a truly remarkable moment in RIT's history. A chance to reflect on the university's evolution through the voices of the leaders who have helped to shape it. We are honored to be joined by 4 presidents whose vision, dedication, and leadership have guided RIT through decades of transformation. And it has been my honor to serve on the Board of Trustees with each one of them. First, we welcome Al Simone, RIT's 8th president, whose tenure laid the groundwork for the university's expansion into research while building partnerships in Rochester and across the globe. Next, Bill Destler, our 9th president, known for championing creativity, innovation, the power of interdisciplinary collaboration, and enhancing the student experience. We welcome David Munson, Jr., RIT's 10th president, whose forward-looking leadership strengthened RIT's identity as a university where technology, the arts, and design interact in extraordinary ways. And finally, William Sanders, RIT's 11th and current president, who will guide the university into its next exciting era, a period that will no doubt need strong vision and stewardship to steer and lead the university through accelerated transformation. Join me in giving all of our group To lead this conversation, we're joined by a Rochester icon in his own right, Don Alhart. For more than 6 decades, Don has been a trusted voice in our community as a former news anchor. He has the impressive record of having covered 7 RIT presidents, beginning with Mark Ellingson. Today, he joins us for the 4th time as moderator of an RIT presidential panel, and we are honored to have him guide this historic conversation. Don, you have the floor.
Thank you, Susan, and thank you again for this opportunity. I'm honored to share it. As Susan said, it's the 4th time I have had these conversations, and I remember the first one, which then included Mark Ellingson. I went to school with his daughter, by the way. Karen Ellingson was a student at Indian Landing School, and that puts it in perspective. I sensed a little groan there when they said 7 presidents. Hopefully you didn't know I was that old, but I do remember the RIT building downtown. I think I was either there for an SAT test or vocational test, but it was that one building downtown that we went to for testing. And I can remember that campus, and I can remember, obviously, over this lifetime, watching it grow and expand. And then starting at Channel 13 in 1966, I was there's a reporter for all of the developments. Moving to here in Henrietta in '68, the opening of NTID with Lady Bird Johnson was here, as I recall. And this historic day, what a wonderful moment to cut the ribbon and watch this impressive Performing Arts Center open up. Now, so while I've witnessed all of this over 82 years, for President Bill Sanders, this is all new. And I want to get your first impressions. You've seen what the predecessors have done. You see where we are. As you walked into this campus for the first time, what was your reaction?
Well, thank you, Don. And let me just start by saying it's an honor to be interviewed by you. And this is my first time, although you've done this 4 times. Thank you very much.
I appreciate it.
You know, I'm a student of history, and one of the first things I did was get the Bible of RIT, Dane Gordon's book, and really read it cover to cover. I tried to get the books on tape, but it hasn't made it to books on tape yet, so I had to read the old-fashioned way. And I want to say that a real thank you to Al and to Bill and to Dave and the past presidents before them for the journey that they led RIT on for so many years. I mean, what an incredible journey, right? Going back to the early 1800s, didn't even offer bachelor's degrees until 1950, and then the acceleration after that. So it's an incredible journey, and as a student of history, I'm so inspired by what the past presidents have done. Yeah. Now, getting more to the present, I'd say the thing that has struck me and my wife Emily the strongest since we came here is the people. Right? This is a beautiful building, and this is a beautiful campus. And in fact, I'm very impressed by the infrastructure and campus we have. But the students, how kind, how thoughtful, how smart, how creative they are. The staff and faculty, how dedicated they are to the mission. The Board of Trustees, very caring and very, very nurturing. This place is clearly defined by its people, and it goes beyond RIT. I can tell you that Emily and I are so gratified with the way the entire greater Rochester community has welcomed us. So that's my foundation. And as you hear me talk a little later about the future, I think it's on those people that we will build and take RIT even to the next level. Another thing that I've felt very strongly is the amazing and significant things that we have been able to do with limited resources. You know, we're a place that needs to be frugal. We're a place that needs to be scrappy, but we're a place where all of those people I mentioned, the staff, the faculty, the board, the leadership of the university, the vice presidents and deans, all work together to do rather significant things. So that's, I think, a real starting point for what we have to do together. This campus is second to none. I don't want to recall any other places I might have worked or might have visited, but I can tell you for the nature of what this place is, I haven't seen a better home. And the idea, and it was from the very beginning for me, the idea of being strong in technology, but realizing technology needs to be brought together with the liberal arts, with the arts, with design, with creativity, with innovation, with joy. The marketing team does a good job here, by the way. I can tell you that's what hooked me when I was making my decision about whether I wanted to come here. So those are just some first impressions.
We appreciate that. Thank you for that. When I look at all of you, I look at almost a division between what was a little more formal, the Ellingson years, Richard Rose. It was a very formal time. And I look at Al Simone, and my first image is you in a golf cart driving around campus, meeting students one-on-one. And we from the media and from a community began to say, all right, this is a different era. Something's happening at RIT. There's a connection building, a bond building. As we look back at your years, 1992 to 2007, what are the challenges you faced, and how did you go about bringing that hands-on research and making this community more holistic?
Well, good to be with you again, Don. There's so many ways to answer that question, and I could take hours doing it, but you've given me a time limit, so I'll
Not
try
you,
to
Al.
honor that. I would say that, my whole life in academia, I've introduced new programs, introduced written books, published articles, done all that stuff, administered departments. But the thing that I treasure most from my time at RIT was my notion of shared governance. When I came to the campus in 1992, there were some issues. The faculty did not like the administration and vice versa. There was just like no communication among them, with them. I remember I met my first meeting with the executive committee of the academic senate, the faculty senate, and I asked them, who are your peer universities that you compare yourself with? They gave me a list. I never heard of any of those universities. I said, well, we've got to change that. And I said, but just for the heck of it, I checked out late next meeting, I checked out the salaries. Our salary level on average is at the 20th percentile of those universities. I want to be at the 80th percentile within a year or two. And in addition, I want a new group of universities will be at that 80th percentile. And now, how are we going to do that? I mean, well, right off the bat, there was some animosity between the administration and the faculty, and so right off the bat, we created a faculty senate, a student senate, a staff, a staff, and then a council, then a university council where all of those people met, and I met with each of those groups. In the notion of shared governance. I said, this is a problem I think we have. This is my solution to it. What do you think about it? And they would sometimes say they agree. Most of the time they say they disagree. When they disagree, so why do you disagree? And what would you suggest to make it better? And I listened to that, and I learned from that. Then I'd give them, this is what I think, and this is why. And so we would trade back and forth, and at the end we get a compromise. They say, "All in favor, say aye," and they say aye. It wasn't what I wanted at the beginning. It wasn't what they wanted at the beginning, but it's something that we could live with, and we built forward on that session. I met with the faculty council every time they met. I met with the executive committee and listened to what they were talking about. And then we formed our own breakfast meeting. Once a week, we would meet from 7 o'clock in the morning till about 9 in my office, and we would talk about the issues that were unresolved at the last faculty council meeting. And again, we get into the pluses and the minuses and the trade-offs. And finally, there wasn't enough time, so why don't we extend it and have like a dinner? So we go out to a restaurant, and we'd have a dinner like from 6 until 8 or something like that. And then it became 6 until 10, then 6 until midnight. And then we'd have to find a restaurant that would, not close until we wanted to leave. We started to resolve some of these issues. And when I retired, we decided that I would not have those breakfast meetings once a week that we had, but we'd form a gang. And we called it the Gang of 5+1. And we would have members of the faculty council, executive committee, who met as a group. And after retirement, we'd continue to meet. And so that group of faculty members, 5, and I met, and we talked about the problems facing the university and what we could maybe do to enhance it and improve it. That was one notion of shared governance. But having said that, there were exceptions to that. The one exception that is a main one, I was in my office till 10 o'clock at night, as I usually am, and then reviewing the materials of the day. And I happened to look at the list that the provost had left of the faculty hires that they were going to announce. And each college had about 2 or 3 faculty they were hiring. There were about 20 faculty members that they're going to try to hire in the next go-around. Every single one of them was a white male. I said, oh, wait a minute. I know they're, at MIT when I was getting my doctorate, even at Tufts as an undergraduate, there were women and there were people of color who were better than some of these white males. And they said, well, there's no one else there. We checked. Well, how'd you check? Well, we called all of our friends all over the country. We asked them about it. They said, there's no one out there. And I said, I don't believe that. So I talked to Bill Johnson, who was the mayor at the time, and he had I don't want to stop mentioning names, but he had an assistant called Renee Baker. I hired her. You come over here. Your job is to report to me and only me. Oh. Okay? And your job is to look at every single faculty candidate. And if you think that, and the process that was used to identify that candidate, if you feel that, diversity was not applied, you say no. You can veto every single faculty member you want. I don't want to hear anything about it. And I told the faculty that this is not shared governance, this is me making the decision, okay? And there'll be some of those, and this is one of them. And so we hired no faculty that year. We hired no faculty. And then so how do we identify, where do I find these people of color, or these women that we could hire? And there was an association of about a dozen universities that the leading PhD granting universities. And they would meet a couple of times. They'd meet every month or whatever it was. And they would introduce their ABDs, people that have finished their comprehensive exams and working on a dissertation. And they would introduce those people to the group, and they would meet. Well, I said, I want to be part of that group. They said, no, you don't have enough PhDs. You haven't had them long enough. You're not eligible for the group. So I got Renee, and I got a couple of other people. And what we did was we found out when they were meeting, and we'd get there early, and we'd stand out in the corridor outside the reception area, and we'd catch the faculty members as they walked in. If there were a woman or a person of color, we'd say, hey, are you a candidate? Yeah. Said, well, let me tell you about it. And so we tell them who we were, what we were doing. Say, do you have your resume? Oh, that's fantastic. Can I make a copy of that? I have the dean of this college at the phone right now waiting for me to send them some material. All the deans were ready. They had to be there or else. And we would do that. And as a consequence, all of a sudden, I was getting some of these people of color and women to visit RIT. We do it usually with a Liberty Hill breakfast. We have a Liberty Hill breakfast, and they would be the star, and we'd have people from the community, the faculty, and the staff meet them, and they'd talk. And we did that, and then we'd bring them back on campus as a regular interview, and we started hiring them. And after a while, Renee says, I don't know if you need me anymore, because they're hiring the people that are the best, not because they're white males, but because they're the best. And
Did a lot of that come about? You really put yourself into the community and drew upon the community. The Liberty Hill, I can remember several times going out there for different groups And I think that kind of broadened not only your horizon of our community, but got people in the community to become involved with RIT as well.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time, every community group I could find, I met. I was on their board, I was on the association. I had them on campus at Liberty Hill Breakfast. I had them on campus for dinners and lunches. My wife would meet them and greet them as they came in. We had guests, Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, the two Bushes when they were presidents. They were all at Liberty Hill with faculty and staff and students and maybe some people from the community. And it was just a mingling of those entities. And it helped establish this notion of shared governance. Have I had time for one more example?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, here's what it is. I believe that as president, I should not be distinguishable from faculty, staff, or students in general. So what I did was I established a softball team, and I was the pitcher. I think Bob Finney was the left fielder. Joe Morelli, who was a congressman, was a politician, he was my catcher and leadoff batter. Joe Robach was my first baseman and cleanup batter. And I would set up a team of where I was the pitcher of community folks primarily, and we would play other other companies would send their team, or I'd play a faculty team, and I'd pitch and batted lower in the batting order. But that was our softball. We did that every year. We had 5 or 6 softball games. During receptions before a hockey game or something like that, I was on the wrestling team in college, so I challenged. I would wrestle trustees. I would wrestle people. I would wrestle people from the community, and I would wrestle students. And we'd wrestle, and then after so many minutes, we'd start. I'd win some, I'd lose some. Between the halves of the hockey games, halftime, everybody goes to the locker room, except I had a team that went out there. Tom Golisano was on my team, for example. So I had a team of faculty, staff, and community folks, and we play other teams. And we did that. Again, it was just doing, we played stickball. I learned that in the north end of Boston because my grandparents, I was the first person in my family to go to college, and I lived in a suburb of Massachusetts where I grew up. But my parents were from the north end of Boston, the Italian section, poor. And we used to play stickball there. No ball fields, no grass, no trees. You had a broomstick and a rubber ball, and you play a regular game, so what I did was I introduced stickball on the campus outside of Eastman Hall. We'd bat facing the building in front. If you hit the ball over the wall, it's an out. I had a couple of people up there to catch the ball. It's just an out. You can't hit over the wall. If you hit the wall, the ball's in play unless you catch it. If you don't catch it, the ball's in play. You run the bases, And that was stickball. So we did stickball. We did softball. We did wrestling. I could go on and on. There were a number of things that we did as faculty, staff, and students, no difference. But when it came time to make an important decision, the person that was going to be held accountable for that decision would have the final word. And then that person would be judged over time on how good the decision was and how things happened. And to make sure you get judged well, you wanted to have the best decision made, so you consulted with all the people I talked about to get their ideas of compromise, and go forward. So I just love my time at RIT. I tried to follow Mark Ellingson. He was president for 33 years, and I came in 1992. He passed away in 1993. We had a chance to meet 2 or 3 times while he was still around. He died. I think he was 89 years old when he died. He was phenomenal, 33 years. 1828, the Rochester Athenaeum was established. 50 years later, Mechanics Institute was established. 7 years after that, the two of them merged, right? And they had a downtown, operation. And then in 1944, Ellingson decided to call that RIT. And in 1962, he said, I want to move to this campus in Henrietta. The guy was phenomenal. I mean, I'll never be able to match what he did for our. He's the one that made the difference.
And we appreciate all of you have done as well. Thank you.
And then to finish up, Bill I mean, this guy followed me. He was phenomenal. He added his own color, his own uniqueness, and he just took it to the next level. and then Dave did the same thing. Bill, we're expecting the same out of you.
All right. We had Al Simone in the golf cart. I think of Bill Destler. I think of the banjo on your knee. Give him a round of applause because he. I think you're beginning.
We also had a tug-of-war. Remember that? I get people in the community, and we get a fact out a tug-of-war at the campus.
Poor Bill, you're taking his time now. We're going to have to cut him down. No, we'll give him his whole allotment here.
I ran over my time.
See?
Oh, boy. Sorry, Bill.
That's okay, Al.
Well,
I just wanted to mention, since you mentioned banjos, that actually the banjo played a role in my coming to RIT. Several years before I actually became a candidate to become president here, I said to my wife, I said, Rebecca, how would you like to spend a romantic weekend in Rochester, New York? We were living at the time in Columbia, Maryland, and I was working at the University of Maryland. And she said, okay, Bill, what's the real story? And I said, well, my favorite vintage banjo shop is in Rochester, New York. So we came up here for the weekend and had a lovely time. And about 2 years after that, and I got some banjos. And 2 years after that, I got a call from a former student of mine who had been a student of mine at the University of Maryland. His name was Chance Glenn. Some of you may have remembered Chance. But he said he was on the search committee and said he wanted me to look into this place. And so that was really how I made the connection with RIT.
So you're here 2007 to 2017.
Right.
And when we look back on that, that's really the beginning of the global expansion of RIT. What prompted that?
Well, it had already begun when I came on board, but we did expand it quite a bit. We had the campus in Croatia, beautiful city of Dubrovnik. If you've never been there, it's worth a trip. Then we went to Kosovo, which was a new country. That was exciting. And then to Dubai, where actually they've built a major campus out there. I understand the campus is now closed because of the war, but I think that those campuses have added immeasurably to the reputation of RIT overseas. I think that in the future, you won't see very many universities that are not internationally engaged in some way. And so I think that that's a really good foundation for us moving forward.
And Al was talking a little, obviously touched on, I think, opening up diversity on campus, and that was a focus of yours as well.
Al really said it all, because the programs that he started, we inherited, and we used those just like he did to identify and then hire faculty people of color and women. I think we all need to understand that the United States is a great experiment. We're going to be, within 20 years, we'll be a country with no majority race. And we either can move forward and make ourselves an example for the rest of the world about how to do that thing, or we're going to be in trouble. So becoming more diverse and involving more segments of our population in higher education is really not an option. It's actually essential if we want to move forward.
As I sit here this morning, I look back on the other interviews we've done with past presidents, and in every case I would look over the shoulder and see Dr. Barry Culhane, who was a good friend of mine, a good friend in Rotary, but an assistant to presidents going back to maybe Mark Ellingson, but I know at least Richard Rose and beyond. But it was that era when I talk about Barry, I still remember him coming to me and saying, "We've got this new project, Imagine RIT, and I want you to know more about it." Tell us about the roots of that and Barry's role in it as well.
This is a wonderful example of how a new president can come to campus with a half-baked idea. And hundreds of faculty, staff, and students will turn it into a good idea. I did have this idea of creating a kind of innovation and creativity festival, and I approached Barry Culhane, who at that point was a kind of a executive assistant to the president, whatever that meant at the time, and I wasn't exactly sure what Barry did, but I said, "Barry, why don't you do this festival thing?" He said, "Great." And he did. He put together a group of people, and I'll never forget the first day of the festival when we were looking out on Jefferson Road hoping that somebody was going to come.
We don't have that problem now.
People did come,
Yeah.
And the second year, we drew about 20,000 people. That was just amazing, actually. And hats off to Barry, who's no longer with us. He was a wonderful friend, and he just took it to heart. He just said, "Okay, let's make this thing." And that's what RIT faculty, staff, and students do. If you come up with a half-brained idea, they'll turn it into a good one.
Yeah. And that's really now one of the recruiting tools that really exposes potential students to the whole new world of what this campus can be about.
Yeah, I want to congratulate Bill. I think maybe you changed the date, I'm not sure, but we now have it before May 1st, which is actually before students have to make their decision to come to RIT.
Well, global warming helped with that, Bill.
Oh, yeah.
So that helps with the decision, too.
Right.
And kind of an era, too, when sports began to get the spotlight from news coverage. The run of the Frozen Four from the hockey team, the women's national championship. Tell us a little bit about that excitement that brought RIT into the community spotlight.
Well, I'm a sports fan, so I really enjoyed it. In fact, I told people I was working when I went to all the games, and I really did enjoy it. I really think that Division III sports especially is still a noble enterprise where young people can pursue an education, but at the same time learn the benefits of teamwork and take advantage of whatever talents they have on the athletic field, but still remain true scholar athletes, and we're very, very proud of them. And then I noticed, gee, they have one Division I program, which is the hockey team, and it actually works the same way there. We had a wonderful coach, Wayne Wilson, and Wayne actually graduated his students, and they were model citizens. They represented us well, and much to my surprise, they actually won. I mean, there was no reason they should have won, because we gave no athletic scholarships, but nevertheless, they did very well, and 1 year with no athletic scholarships went all the way to the Frozen Four. So it was exciting for me, but I think it was good for the campus as well.
Thank you. David Munson, from 2017 to 2025, obviously a large portion of the growth here. And I know we've talked about some questions, but there's one word from your comments at the ribbon cutting that I jotted down almost immediately when you talked about this building and this new facility. You used the word necessary, that this building, this environment is necessary. And I thought maybe we'd begin with that, because that, I think, encompasses what your vision has been and continues to be.
Yeah, I think it was a necessary part of our strategy. So even prior to my arrival, I still remember meeting up with our Chief Marketing Officer, John Trierweiler, and John and I had breakfast together, and I said, "John, where RIT is on this ladder of ascension, we're still not ready to go toe-to-toe across a broad front with the most famous universities in the nation. But what can be our next step to get there? And in my opinion, we needed a special focus for the university, something that other universities weren't doing nearly as well as we could do that thing. And I was already very familiar at that time with the strength of the arts here at RIT, you know, a phenomenal college of art and design. And we have the National Technical Institute for the Deaf, which also has very fine programs in the performing arts.
Right.
And there is no other technological university probably in the entire world that has those things. And so we put our focus on that, both marketing, and then you have to back it up with programs and facilities. And you know, did that during my 8-year term as president. But as you start to market those things, you're making a promise to those students you're recruiting that we will have the programming, we will have the facilities. And with the Performing Arts Scholars Program, and we heard numbers earlier, we have more than 2,000 of those students on campus. You can't bring those students here and have our only performing venue to be something that really doesn't match their aspirations and their capability, frankly. And so we obviously built the shed, which is an interdisciplinary sort of making facility, and it is to serve every student on campus. And it's all about exercising their creativity and innovation and bringing students together from multiple disciplines, all on different project teams and what have you. And that facility is ringed with performing arts facilities, but they're smaller scale performing arts facilities. It was a huge jump for the campus to have those. But we still didn't have, you know, a first-class, first-rate theater. And this theater was designed specifically for musical theater productions, but to be usable for a whole broad range of other performing arts, as well as university events. And we put our finger on musical theater because in a musical theater production, for those who have been involved in this, you don't have to be a singer or an actor or a dancer to be involved. There are tons of things backstage. There's costumes, sets, and nowadays the sets are actually animated, they move. And RIT has one of the top animation programs in the nation. Yeah. And so what will happen here, and what is already starting to happen, and people will see it tonight, is almost any kind of student on our campus can be involved here. And the production tonight will showcase that. There will be hundreds of students involved, and they're not all out here on the stage. A whole lot of them are doing their dancing in the wings as they've got the headphones on and they're directing other people what to do. But that's worked out marvelously. And then this is getting off on a little bit of a tangent. You know, we didn't only work on the performing arts here. To get to the next stage as a university, we really had to work on elevating our research programs. And so during my time, and I'm not responsible for this, I'm kind of the director, but a lot of other people did the hard work and carried this out, including our faculty, staff, and other administrators. But we doubled the number of PhD programs, and we doubled the number of PhD graduates. And so we're very close now to being an R1 university. And I want to give a lot of other people credit for that. Mm-hmm. One last thing I'll mention is that the first time I saw this campus, I drove in on the road off of Jefferson Road. I drove into the campus off of Jefferson Road. And the first thing you'd see on your left was what I referred to as a high school football stadium. And I didn't think that had any place on our campus. And made that known. I thought it would actually look better if there were no stadium at all. But of course, we needed that for our athletic teams, and it was serving them pretty well. And I want to credit Jim Waters and others with really creating a master plan for the upgrade of our athletic facilities. Like Bill Destler, I'm keen on sports. I think it plays a big role in society and in life in general. And we've got facilities that will pretty much match any other top Division III program in the nation now. And of course, a wonderful ice arena that was built during Bill's tenure for our Division I hockey teams. But all of that has come together, and now when families, including their parents especially, are visiting campus, it just makes a totally different impression. And we are recruiting just better and better students. and from highly supportive families. And so I think the future is incredibly bright.
Yeah. How important are alumni and community in making these projects come to fruition?
I would say that if you go back, it wasn't too long ago, Al could answer this question, but it wasn't that long ago that every member of the Board of Trustees was from Rochester. And RIT's purpose was mostly to serve local industry. And we still do that very well. We're very, very connected with the community. But now the majority of our students come from outside of the state of New York, and that's a very, very healthy thing for the institution. We have a lot of trustees from all across the nation, and even one or two from overseas. And I think that's very healthy for the institution. But I think RIT will never abandon Rochester. We're very, during my time, and I know Bill's time it'll be the same, just very proud to be in Rochester, New York, and to assist in any way we can with the resurgence of the city. Now on the alumni side, increasingly, our alums, not as many reside in upstate New York. Right. And that's because they have, and when they graduate, every opportunity literally in the entire world. And so our alumni populations have grown enormously in the Los Angeles area, the Bay Area, California, Seattle, Denver, various places in Texas. We still have a lot of alums that live in this area, but we've got alums now all across the nation, all across the world. And a lot of them are highly successful. And as these alums meet with financial success as well as personal success and success in their chosen disciplines, they're increasingly becoming very supportive of the institution. And I want to credit Phil Castleberry, our Vice President for Advancement, and his team with the very fine work they do with our alumni and with this donor base that we're talking about.
Yeah, thank you. I've gone from the golf cart to the banjo, and if I go back to my media days, you're not only embracing of the performing arts and videos, but you were frequently the star in some of these video productions. And I don't know if they had to drag you into that, or if that's just part of your nature to begin with, but tell us a little bit about that, because they were not only highly entertaining, but extremely well produced.
Well, so RIT has this incredibly creative and quirky student body. Students here, at every university, people think, the faculty that work there, the staff, they think their place is unique. Oh, we've got unbelievable students, they're just unique. At RIT, no, they're unique here, really unique. And Nancy and I just adore the students here and made so many friendships with the student body. And I had made a couple of videos at my prior institution. And from the day I walked in, they said, "Where's the video? Come on, where's the video?" And this goes back a couple of decades, but Nancy had dragged me into some community theater that we did together. And so we were very accustomed to musical theater and what have you. Although in some of these videos, we weren't really allowed to sing because then the music was copyrighted and all this kind of thing. So we just goofed off. And the students loved it. Now, the primary reason we made those videos was to make us approachable to the students. And the production values on those videos increased over the years, thanks to John Trierweiler and his organization. I could name a whole slate of staff in John's organization that are now good friends, where we all worked on those videos together. But as the production values increased, the students were just demanding more and more. And I've said this many times, but we would always show the video for the first, each entering class had its own video. We would always show that video at freshman convocation. And after convocation, I just couldn't go anywhere on campus because every student wanted a selfie, every student wanted to chat. And that effect didn't wear off for it took about 3 months for things to kind of settle down again. But it was good because it did make us approachable, and we got to know so many students, and that was really the purpose. And I'll also add that there are multiple parents that told me that, when you drop off your kid on campus, it's especially hard if it's your first child going to college, or especially if it's your last child going to college. And they would kind of worry, is my Johnny or Susie, are they going to be okay at RIT? Then they would see that video and they said, oh, everything's going to be okay. So it worked out.
Yeah. So, Bill, you've gone from golf carts to banjos to videos. You've got your work cut out for you in more ways. I don't know what the niche is going to be. Maybe you'll share it with us. But obviously, this brings us to you based on what we have seen to tell us where we are going. What's the strategic vision, and what might be your niche in all of this?
No, it's a really tough act to follow, and I'm probably not going to tell you my one thing today. We'll see how that plays out. I will say a few things, though, but let's have a round of applause for these past presidents. Thank you. So I think several of you have heard this. I wasn't looking for a job when I came here. I don't know if it was like you, Bill, but, and Dave knows the detailed story. I'm not going to tell it on stage, but I fell in love with this place. Emily and I fell in love with this place. We drove up here in December for my interview during a blizzard. I thought I was going to die just a little south of Erie. I guess that was the test, right?
Right.
And then, speaking of Phil Castleberry, his job was to give me a tour of campus on a Saturday afternoon during a blizzard in a golf cart, and again, I think it was a test of me to see if I could endure that. But boy, we've fallen in love with this place. For all the reasons you've heard these gentlemen say, this is truly a unique and special place. And I agree with you, Dave. Every place says that. And I will tell you, even after I accepted the job, I was thinking, yeah, every place says this. This is a good place. And it took me a few months, but this place is truly unique. And because of that, I can see a really great future for it. Yep. Now, I came at a very special time. And I came at a time where the community, the staff, the faculty, the students had been working on a new strategic vision for the university, probably 6 to 8 months under Dave's leadership, with Enid Carnell and Frank Skolarski and a whole great strategic plan committee. And they had done a whole bunch of research and work. The first thing I was handed, I publicly accepted, was announced as the next president late January. And within 2 weeks, I had a Google folder just filled with reports and documents and thoughts about the future. But it was a great time to come in. I looked at that and I said, oh my gosh, I better join the committee right now, because if I don't and I come in July, who knows what they'll produce. But I joined in February, worked alongside the committee. And that committee really, on behalf of well more than 1,000 people, I think several thousand people, I think together we crafted a framework for the future of RIT. And I want to emphasize that it's a framework, not a detailed strategic plan, because I believe that we need to be nimble, we need to act with velocity, we need to be responsive and strategic, and that's something is a constant feedback loop. So we have a North Star, we have, if you will, directional arrows, and I think that gives a great thing to build on. There's really only 4 simple strategic goals. The first is transformative student experiences. And there's a lot there, and you can look online, or you can have the pretty coffee table book if you want. We get you one. But the real point there is, number one, building upon this incredible history of co-ops, right? And we didn't talk too much about that today, but an incredible, unique, and positive history. You go to RIT, you have experiences, you get a job. We want to broaden that and make that right for today. So we want to make even stronger experiential learning, but make that a variety of experiences. Maybe it's research. Maybe it's an experience at one of our other campuses. Maybe it's community work in our local community. So we're going to really look, and again, it's not me, it's the whole community that's doing this. I think that's important. And secondly, RIT's always been known as a place you go to RIT, you'll get a job. We have an incredibly high placement rate. 96, 97% of people immediately get jobs when they come out. But what we're seeing is the future of work is changing very quickly and dramatically, right? 10 years from now, work isn't going to be like it is today. We know that for AI, we know that for all sorts of reasons. And so what we have committed to doing is inspiring, training, empowering our students to be leaders, and be leaders in creating that future of work, and be leaders in fields that they may help invent that don't even exist yet today. And so that's where we're going on the education front. The second pillar, and I'll be quick about it, it talks about world-changing research, right? And we heard about the beginnings of research with Al, and then this has grown all along. We heard about the new PhD programs that Dave created, and it's time for this to come in full glory. It's time to build, just like we have to build the infrastructure to support theater and the performing arts, which we continue to believe in a very strong, we have to build the infrastructure to support world-changing research. And we're going to do that, and we're not going to narrowly say, and we're going to do it in this area and that area, but not the other areas. Someone isn't going to judge it. We're going to let the faculty inspire what those areas will be, but we're going to build the infrastructure to do it. The third pillar is well-being and community. And from the very beginning, from what Al said, it's a long thread through all of us, our commitment to making RIT a place where everyone can thrive, right? Everyone. And I mean everyone, and it's a really diverse group of people. That's something that attracted me to RIT, and you'll see we're doubling down on that, and so important in this age to double down and really do that. And then finally, and again, we heard the thread, but building a global mindset and a global presence. Again, many universities, in some ways every university is doing something, but many universities are retreating from that today. And it's not because we want to be everywhere, it's because we want to have that mindset to understand our globe going forward and being world citizens. So these are things that are part of the 10-year vision. We're getting immediately to work. We just presented at the Board of Trustees meetings new initiatives that aren't really announced yet, but much is going on in AI, new initiatives in combining health and technologies, new initiatives and continued emphasis on student success, student retention, student graduation, and essentially the success of students going forward. So these are things we're doing. I don't know whether it's going to be a unicycle, or I don't know it's going to be dog training, or we'll see. Some of you know about Ollie, so we'll find out when you interview me 10 years from now what that one thing is. But I can tell you that the passion for this continued upward trajectory is strong at RIT, and it's going to serve it well.
All right.
So.
Thank you. That's a date. I'm putting that in my calendar now. 10 years from now.
It's a date. We'll do it.
When this campus in Henrietta was dedicated back in 1968, President Mark Ellingson said these words: "I believe with this new campus as a launching pad that we have seen the path of growth and service is a bare beginning. I might liken it to the very simply airplane of 1908, vintage in comparison to the spaceships of today. I predict to everyone here that this institution will enter a new, exciting, and challenging era. Keeping in mind the brevity of that statement, as our mission to the moon wraps up today, what do each of you see? What would your statement be for the future of RIT? Al Simone.
Okay, I'd like to take my time and express gratitude to a student who passed away, James Marciano.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
He, a special relationship. He came here as a transfer student and earned his bachelor's degree in 4 years, and then he got an MBA degree. He worked in alumni relations and government relations at RIT, was president of the student government, and that's how I came to know him. As president of student government, I would meet with the student government executive committee and get to know him well. We became friends. And when I retired, we kept that relationship going. And so for like 10 years after I retired, we would meet 2 or 3 times a year. And one of the things was I would take my car into the Toyota dealer in Canandaigua and stay for 2 or 3 hours while they fixed it. He would follow me over and pick me up, and we'd go out to dinner and shop and while they fixed the car. What I'm saying is, all of a sudden, brain cancer came to him, and he didn't last long after that. His wife Shirley, his mother Shirley, his wife Emily, his children Dominic, Joey, and Grace. It was just a traumatic challenge for them, and they went through a lot. He went through a lot. He was a remarkable individual. He represented, in my view, RIT to the best any student could or any alumnus could. And I just want to say thank you, James.
Well, I'll be very succinct. Higher education is under considerable threat. The high school population is shrinking. Questions about our inability to control costs. The question about the return on investment of a college education. These are all coming up more than ever before. When I retired from RIT, for the first time we made the U.S. News Top 100 group. And under Dave's leadership, we moved to 88. I honestly believe we better get to 50. Because if we don't, our future will not be secure in higher education. There are a lot of institutions that are going to be challenged, and many will close or merge with other institutions. So we have to continue this incredible rise we've been on and take our place among the country's finest universities. That has to be our goal. Sorry, Bill, that's pressure, but we have to do it.
No problem, Bill.
Yeah, and I'd say actually, we're headed in the direction Bill is indicating, and I have a lot of confidence that RIT is going to get there. I'm a little less pessimistic about the future of higher ed overall. I think the economy's been really quite good in recent years, and especially, coming out of COVID, the entry-level salaries skyrocketed. We have all these especially white males coming out of high school saying, oh, I don't need to go to college. When the economy gets a little worse, I think it's going to become more and more clear what the value of higher ed is. And so I think we'll see some turnaround. But Bill's right, in terms of the current situation is as described. I think it'll change, and I think RIT is headed to the top 50.
No pressure, right? No pressure at all. No, look, they're stealing my thunder. There is going to be a divide. I believe there will be a divide of universities. There'll be many universities that fail. We've already seen it. And there will be some universities that will thrive. And I predict, well, you said 50, I'll say 40. But anyway, I predict that RIT will continue that quick rise. And by the way, U.S. News and World Report is just one metric. I think the important thing to say is it will continue on that quick ascension of quality and excellence and preeminence, but it will absolutely do it on its own terms and its own way, right? Like we talked about a university of one. And I don't know if we'll be a university of one, but we're going to do this on our own terms, and we will be a preeminent national and international university that will be sought after as a place to be, like Dave said, from around the nation and around the globe. And I truly believe that.
I personally want to thank you all for allowing me to share this moment and to continue the tradition of interviewing the presidents as we begin a brand new era in this beautiful Performing Arts Center. I thank you for the opportunity to engage in this discussion. May the students who pass through here build on the foundation we've seen and continue under your leadership to be the leaders of tomorrow. Thank you all.
Thank you, Don.
Thank you.
Thank you, Don.